Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves what happened today, and what does it tell us about tomorrow. In particular, what is the trend, and where's the supply and demand curves. I do a show 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of what is a rainy and potentially snowy Rocky Mountain tonight. Folks, when we talked last night, we expected a bounce. Yeah, it looked like it. Why? Well, we had tested lows on the Dow. We tested a high volume bar on the SPX. The retest regens on the NDX and the composites were taking place. And all of these were taking place with higher volume than you would like. The only one that really stood out as a potential turn in a classical perspective in terms of everything being right was on the Dow. Had less volume, testing lows, rejected it, right? Back the other way. We also, though, when we looked at the sectors, we saw the sectors all had finished ABCDs down, and yet they had higher volume too. So it was a mixed picture. So we thought, okay, we'll get a bounce. We'll be able to measure it, see what it is. Well, we didn't get a bounce. We got like a rocket ship, a rocket shot, I should say, higher. Dow Jones up 323 points. 15,126 was the close, 2% higher. S&P's 36 higher, 1692. This is where we were 2 days back before we, saw the carnage. Composite up 82, almost 83 points, 3760 and 3/4. The NDX 68 points higher, 3211. Russell 2.5% higher, 26 points, 1069.5. We had gold down. It looks like it's up after hours here, over 13 again. It was underneath it. Oil was up today, down a little bit after hours. The dollar was up slightly. We had weakness in the commodities again. We had strength. Actually, we had some weakness early in the bonds. They turned around by the end of the day. But the real standout was the equities. I mean, big moves, right? 2% across the board, 2.5% on the biggest one. That's a rocket ship. I mean, that's, I thought a bounce, maybe we get back up to that area that we talked about. But it was much more than that area we talked about. And what was that? Well, we were talking about a potential move up into this area. 1679, 1676, that's where we thought we'd have some resistance. Well, that's where it opened, and it just kept going, and we went all the way back up. Now, we did it on lighter volume, right? But when you're comparing in neoclassical, you don't just look at volume. I mean, volume by itself doesn't really tell you anything. It tells you something when it comes into something. Now, had we come up into this area, these bars, and failed, in other words, closed underneath the 1680 area, well, that would have been a different story, but we didn't. We went over it. Now, we went over it with lighter volume, yeah, but that wasn't, that's not going to tell us anything at this point. Matter of fact, if you compare this 33 to that 35 compared to this 34, it wasn't that far off, yeah, a little lighter. The real test now is going to be how does it react when it gets back up into this zone that you see up here. That's your swing point high. Actually, it's the bar in front of it now. It's 1707, 37 up there, and then the bar here is not going to be that much, so about 37 now. That's at 1707. That's on the S&Ps if it can get up there. After this kind of a rocket ship, yeah, you could get some follow through, but you're probably going to come back a little bit. The one thing you have to notice here is relative volume, right, in terms of what you came into 32 and how you came into it 35, almost 36, says, hey, you left some volume down there. Not a big spike, but enough to come back and visit it at some point. That's the S&P. If I go over, though, and look at the Dow, remember the Dow gave us the cleanest signal yesterday for a reversal. Had a little less volume. I think it was slightly less, 1.1, did 1.0, right? So it does the test, turns around, closes over, it holds the support zone. So that was clean. That was a clean reversal, and then you get the huge shot up. You really have not that much volume coming back up, but there's nothing to compare it to, and you're in the middle of nowhere, right? So Dow's not going to tell us anything tonight other than, boy, I wish I was on that move if I wasn't. Let's go to the sectors that have been probably giving us the best signals. NASDAQ. Okay, so the NASDAQ comes up. You can see volume's a little lighter. You can see it left some volume down here when it's testing. Remember, it was doing a retest regen on 3 different swing points. And remember also that I said anytime you come back after 6 bars and you come back in to do a retest regen, even if your volume is higher, it's almost always a blind buy. The percentages are high that you're going to get some sort of a bounce. Now, it may not be this kind of a bounce, but you're going to get some sort of a bounce out of it. And not only did we get a bounce, we got a big move. Now it's going to come back into what is going to print as resistance tonight. It's going to be huge resistance, or at least it should be, and that is the top of this bar, the October 8th bar, and probably this one is going to stand out on the other side of it. So 37.98, 37.72, that's where it's going to have to get over to make something out of this. If I look at the NDX, it's the same sort of thing. The NDX does the same sort of thing, leaves the volume down here, retesting regen with too much after 6 bars, therefore it should bounce. Yes, it bounces. It's getting up there faster, going to try to test 32.17. It got to 32.16. I would think you see the test right away. The other bar that will probably print on the other side of that support zone, or excuse me, resistance zone, is 32.24, which is the low off of September 20th. That's going to be the test. That's where we're going to see whether or not this thing can just keep running. Now, every time this has happened in the past, every time that we've had the potential to break down, they have stepped back in and they've bought this thing, right? And they've done almost in every case, and this is probably not the best chart to look at, but if I put up the S&Ps one more time, every time we've had these pullbacks, you get a violent V-shaped move right back the other way. And we've seen it twice here. There was actually one here as well, there as well, there as well. And you can't see it that cleanly on a weekly, but if you were looking at the dailies, it was a direct shot back the other way every time this thing looked like it was about to break down. And as I suggested right at the end of the show last night, I said don't get bearish, right, if you're going to sell into the bounce. Don't think of it from that perspective. Think of it as a prudence move, right? You're doing something prudent. In other words, you're gonna right the ship a little bit, put yourself in a position because the structure is there for something larger on the downside. Given what happened today, I expect, and these tests tomorrow, I would assume we're going to get the test tomorrow. It's all news flow right now. So short term, you could go down just as fast as you came up. But assuming we get the test tomorrow and that test fails, and I think there's a good chance that that's what will happen if we get the test, that's going to set up some sort of a range trade for now, and it's going to be a very wide range, from the bottom of this area here to wherever it's going to fail up in here. Actually, it's not going to get that high on the S&Ps if it fails, probably. The NDX, NASDAQ's where I'd be looking right now. So if I go back to the NASDAQ chart, a failure in this area, right? You've got zone from here to here, and that will be the zone that has to play out now, right? Because you had 2 bars down, 1 bar, or actually it will be 2 bars back up. And that zone, that area of conflict will be the area that you want to watch. Because then that's going to give you the range to tell you when the next break occurs, and when that next break occurs, that's where you want to, put your money on that side of the bet, probably. So the way it's set up now, the best case from a trader's perspective, independent if you're bearish or bullish, is for this thing to go up here, fail, right, and set up the range, and then trade inside of it for a while to give you a much better setup for the breakout on one side of the range. That's the way it looks to me. Since I'm here on the S&P, I see a question coming in on the S&P, so let's deal with it real quick. Will the S&P redraw and open at the bottom of a resistance anchor zone? S&P redraw and open at the bottom of an anchored resistance zone. You're talking about tomorrow? You're gonna have to rephrase that. I think I'm missing the question. So let me continue on while you rewrite it for me, or at least expand it some so that I can understand it. If we go over to the sectors, oh, I forgot to do the Russell. Let me go back and do the Russell right quick. So, and I'll just type it in here and we'll do it. So the Russell. Okay, so the Russell does the same sort of thing, gets deeper, almost gets into the big bar off the bottom. Support holds, comes up on less volume. Now it went over it, but it's in the resistance zone, and the volume is going to be big on this bar. That's the September 20th bar. So the Russell, the NDX, the NASDAQ, they're all going to give us test more than likely tomorrow. This one's already started it. The other two will try again tomorrow to actually hit theirs. And if they do, that's going to give us more information. You get over this, right? It's the highs again. I mean, there's not much to stop you. So we'll see how it trades and how it sets up tomorrow. Let's flip over to the sectors. All right, so on the sectors, something's wrong with volumes. Oh, we were doing I wonder if that program, there was a program running this afternoon. Looks like it messed up my volumes. Let's flip to a different chart. Let's go over here and use this one so that we get the right volumes. Yeah, so here this looks better. Okay, so I want to see what the volumes look like today. So let's take a look at these and see what we got. All right, so IYT does a little more volume. And this also looks like it's going to set up a range, right? This area right here. That's the bar to contend with on the way back up. SMHs, let's see what they look like going back towards the highs. Volume light. That will set up a test tomorrow. So all of these now are going to set up the same sort of a test. Now remember, we had ABCDs up, right? Bullish ones that never completed. Then we got the ABCDs down that actually did complete. That resets what those ABCDs look like on the upside, but now they potentially could be in effect if we break higher again. Let's see, XLB, volume's not great there, and it's actually coming in. Remember, as they come back up, the bars they're going to contend with are the 918s through the 920 bars. Those are the bars that have the volumes on them off the top and on the way up to the top in almost all of these. So as they come back up, you want to measure against those two bars to see what they're doing. You can see you're coming back up with 5.4 into 10, into 11. That's going to be difficult to get over. We'll see if the volume expands as they get up there or stays as it is. Now here's like the XLE expanding, right? That's a good sign. You want it to expand as you come back up to test. So the XLE will be a good test tomorrow, but the XLB doesn't look that good. Let's see what the XLF did. Now it was the weakest all the way at the lows. Big push up, that looks like a lot of short covering. So we'll see if this one actually, now, you know, tomorrow is our first day of big earnings. We had Costco so far was about it. Matter of fact, let's see what Costco did today. A little bit more of a push. This will be, you know, the earnings tomorrow, excuse me, XLF, the earnings tomorrow will tell us a lot. Do they buy these earnings or not on the financials? Let's look at the two that report, see what they're set up to do. So this one actually has already tested down lower, had broken and now bounces back decent volume. Okay, so this will be a big one tomorrow. Let's see what JPM looks like. JPM still looks like it's going to come back, so we may get some mixed numbers on the financials tomorrow, which also, now that earnings are coming into the mix, you got the news flow problem with the government shutdown, the debt ceiling, the potential for a 6-week reprieve on the debt ceiling. Now you're going to start throwing earnings in the mix, which is going to make it probably even a little bit more volatile. Let's go back and continue here. So if I go back to the indexes or the sectors, XLK right quick, let's see what this one looks like. That one also is, you know, the test will be these 9, 20, 22 bars as you come back up. It's not to them yet. XLI. It's getting to them, and it's got volume. That's a good sign. So that's two sectors so far that are showing us as they're coming towards them, they got the volume. XLE, XLI. So if you're looking for strength, that's what you're looking for. Those two look the best. XLP, big spike. This is just a huge range. I don't pay much attention to it right now. XLU, same thing, no volume. XLV, this one had sold off, comes back up, doesn't have the volume. Okay, so it's testing left volume at the bottom. I think this 51 area, 51 and a quarter area will still be the test on that one as it comes back. XLY. And see how they all left the volume down here, which is problematic, which makes me think, it makes me think that as we come back into the 920, in this case it's the 918 bar, but as we come back into those, you know, that big bar up, whichever one it happens to be, right, they're a little slightly different on the sectors, those will be the bars to test against on the way back. There's a big wide price spread bar on almost all your major sectors. So look at those, look at how they come into them, use that as your mechanism to make decisions real time, or, you know, wait on me and then I'll tell you what I think. But that's the way I'm looking at them. So let me go pop back over. I believe if we get off the sectors, we'll probably have good reads on volume. So let's look at those as we go to the ox markets. Yeah, that one looks more reasonable. Okay, so the TLT comes back into support, doesn't have the volume, flips around. This one's going to go back up. Now it's starting to set up. Remember, this one's trying to turn. Now it's starting to set up. And the other thing we've been talking about lately is the dollar and the bonds were the only thing out there telling us that there was going to be some sort of a deal. And today you got the deal, or at least you got what looks to be the deal. We'll see if it actually is the deal tomorrow, I guess. This one looks to flip around, and it's gonna just, I think you're gonna see the bonds gyrate for a little bit. At some point, I think there's the potential to come deeper. But the big bar to test into would be this one, the 104. That's the August 23 number in terms of what bar to look at. Gold, silver traded down. Let's see how bad they did. Yeah, that's probably going to test the lows again. Yeah, and those lows, remember, that's the test over here into the high volume low bar, the high of it. You get into that bar, and that's what it's trying to do now on a weekly. 124.70, we're at 124.27. You stay inside that bar, you can actually go all the way to the other side of it. So if you're in gold, be careful, I guess is the most I can tell you. The best thing I can tell you maybe is the way to say it. Let's see if silver confirms. A little bit stronger, so silver's still hanging better. It's got the industrial component to it, which is probably helping it out more. The oil market was trying to break down, a little spike up, not much volume. I don't think this one's going to go far. Let me see what nat gas is doing. They should have had inventory numbers today. Yeah, they're going up. They're going to test the top. I would think that happens tomorrow or Monday at the latest. Haven't looked at the ag sector lately. Let me see what it looks like. So the broader one, RJA, doesn't look so good. The grains themselves were starting to, yeah, these are getting ready to try to break out. They're testing. 4 days of testing up here at the highs. This, just like the bond market on a longer term, is trying to turn. Let's look at the dollar. Dollar spiked up again today, but couldn't hold it again. Had volume expansion, though. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So you get into resistance. It looks like you held into it. Let me see what the FXE and FXY did. FXE, it held support again. And FXY, yeah, it really came off. So going back to the dollar real quick, and the only reason I'm interested in the dollar is because if the dollar continues to suggest it wants to go higher, that tells us more and more that some sort of deal is really going to happen. This is a toss-up, but the higher volume certainly makes me think it's going to try to test that swing point high. And if it does, it's going to get over it more than likely. 2176, it's at 2170. If it can get over it, then you can go all the way back up and do a retest regen on these lows. It's 2182. So that still seems to be positive in terms of the market. All right, let me go back and try to answer your questions. I got a couple of emails as well. Let's see here. I got a few minutes. Let's try to do this. So, Mr. R. Surf, does TLT look like a buy here? I was just talking about it. TLT to me looks like a small range, so I don't think the opportunity is great yet. I probably would wait. This thing's going to get pushed around by whatever happens news flow. B, your range right now is this small range, so I just, I mean, it tested into here, has less volume, closed over it, or did it close over it? That low 105.55, no, it didn't. Closed inside it, which even gives me more reason to say no. So no, I don't really think so. If I'm going to buy, I'm going to make it come down deeper, either into this bar and fell, which is the August 23 bar, or even all the way to the bottom. So I like it turning longer, for some sort of a turn here that it can get up even higher, but I don't want to buy it this high. Because remember, your intermediate term time frame, this thing is bearish, right? Long-term time frame, it's sideways and wants to go bearish eventually. The thing it could do and should do is retest regen off this low. That low is 109.69. Okay, so where does that take you? 109.69 takes you back to the swing point high on the weekly, takes you back into this bar. Where's that over here? Well, that's farther up. It's right up here at the highs, right? The swing point high, 109.69. So you can see you're about middle of the range. So why buy in the middle of the range with all the news flow as it is, and you're underneath that bar? So no. The answer is no. SPX, let's see what the rest of the question. Redraw and open at the top of a resistance anchor zone. Is there an anchor zone at the closing price? Oh, I see what you're asking. Okay, so let's go back and look at it and see. So if I go back to the SPX and sorry, just a second, went to the wrong place. General markets, here we go. Okay, so SPX, is there an anchor zone at the closing price? Well, we'll see what the program decides tomorrow, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be slightly higher. I think you're going to see it redraw on the bottom of this bar, the closest one, 1700, right at the 1700 level is where I think you'll see the bar. I believe that the swing point high here in the bottom of this bar is where I would think you see it draw tomorrow. All right, let me take a couple questions from viewers who've sent them in. One of them, Fred, says, FFIV, can you have a look at it? Earnings October 23rd. I think he wants to buy this. So FFIV is a chip company, so they got earnings coming out on the 23rd. So first of all, that's not very far away, right? We're on the 10th already. So, you got roughly 8 trading days in front of it. So, when I see something like that, I don't get too excited about it unless it really is a standout chart. So let's take a look at it and see what it looks like, though. So it's well, it's just sideways consolidating, right? It's a big consolidation. Let's look at it on the weekly. Yeah, you got a huge bar you're contending with, right? You've gone up there. You actually broke over it on this bar. No volume. So you got a test mark. That's what it's doing. Resistance after that one is here. So let's just take the the best case, 97.94 versus breakout over this bar, which is 92. So you got about $2, right, before you hit the next big zone. So from that perspective, you know, why bother? Would be what I say. So, you know, I'm sorry, I can't get that excited about it. Yeah, I would pass on this. There's a lot better charts than this one in my mind. The other question was Altera. We looked at Altera last night, and the question was slightly different than what I thought it was. So let me try to go back to that question. The question was about the solid blue bar. Why is that an anchor bar, right? You know, for example, look at the high volume wide price spread bars around it. Okay, anchor bars. There's many anchor bars on this chart. You know, or there's multiples. There can be up to well 12 just from volume and wide price spread themselves. But then you got swing points as well. So in this case, you got probably about 6 of those. So you can have 18 potential anchor bars on this chart. We only draw 3 zones, right? 3 resistance zones, 3 support zones, anchored support zones, if they are relevant and they meet a certain criteria. To get a zone, you need 2 bars. So the algorithm takes into effect a weighting system with respect to the bars themselves. Then it has to match those bars up in terms of congruent bars or overlapping bars. So when you take all of that into account, sometimes you'll get something like this, where this shows up as an anchor bar, right? Not that these aren't, these are too. It's just that they didn't match up well when you got to the algorithm that's trying to find the zone. You needed something to match this up to. The program thought this bottom of this bar, the bottom of that bar created the best zone down there in terms of support zone. That's why it took it. It had a higher weighting than the others. And what the zones try to do also is they try to manage the spread, the width of the zone. The more narrow the zone, the better, right? Because, you know, if I have a big wide zone, it's not that much value to me. I really want ones that are more narrow. And so that also is another weighting component inside this. Cisco. So that's hopefully that explains it a little bit better. Let's see what Cisco looks like. So Cisco, of course, everybody knows Cisco. They're networking, sell a lot of equipment, networking equipment. So the question, what is the question here? The question is this a buy on a support zone on the weekly? So it looks horrible on the daily. Let's go to the weekly. Well, I would think you want it to get deeper. You got a little ABCD down going here, 26.49, 20, what is it, 23, so that's about $3, 3.25 off of that, takes you about to 20.80 or so, which actually takes you right into this bar. That's where I'd be trying to look. I'd let it try to trade down into that bar, and that's where I'd take a shot at it if I was going to buy it. Okay? Folks, tomorrow, you know, we could get a little follow through, but that was a huge move today. Usually you get that kind of a move, you know, that kind of a rocket ship, it's hard to bring it right back down. But then again, remember, it's all news flow right now, right? If they don't work out a budget, we could be right back the other way. If we're still hanging with the expectation on a Friday, and if the earnings don't kill us, right, we could certainly test a little bit higher, and that would give us that test that we really want to see tomorrow on the NASDAQ, on the Russell, on the NDX, because that would give us the kind of information that we didn't know whether this thing really is going to do that next V-shaped move, or we're really going to get some sort of range. If I had to place my bets, given what I see here, I think you're going to get the range. But then, what do I know? Folks, have yourself a great evening. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. As always, tell a friend, tell two. I'm L.A. Little. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night. I'll catch you on Sunday when we do the weekly. Take care, folks. Good night.